Hello, everybody. Good evening. Welcome to Doughnut Economics, Can Bath Thrive Like Amsterdam? As most of you know, I'm Vicky Gallop, convener of the Business and Economics Forum. We have a very interesting speaker tonight. So Carra, amazing woman, educator and leader, running local Doughnut Economics groups at the Grapes, our local pub in Westgate Street. She's worked with Kate Raworth, the founder of Doughnut Economics, and actively integrates Doughnut Economics principles into various sectors and strategies. Also works with the University of Bath in this area. She's going to talk for about 35 minutes, after which there'll be all your questions, all the questions on Zoom. Sorry, Zoomers, I haven't said hello to you yet. Hi. Please, Zoomers, add your questions by chat and those in the room. So we'll be roaming around with the roaming microphones to take your questions. Please talk into the microphone because otherwise those of you that are watching on Zoom can't hear the question. So thank you for your help in that. Right, with no further ado, over to Carra Santos, our speaker for tonight.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay? Okay, so good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining me here today. I'm really appreciate the invitation to come from Vicky. It's very kind. My name is Carra Santos, and I'm a Sustainable Futures educator and interpreter. I work across multiple sectors. It's what I do. I work across everyone. I try to join the dots, and I support, in particular, creative leaders, cities and communities to co-design the transition to sustainable futures, everybody together. And what I mean about sustainable futures is the conditions for everyone to thrive within the means of the living world. To go into a bit more detail on that, I'll be talking through some of the key concepts and principles of Doughnut Economics and how they're being brought to life in Amsterdam. Oh. I can, of course I can. I could try. I will. Okay, so to go into more detail on that, I'll be talking through some of the key concepts and principles of Doughnut Economics and how they're being brought to life in Amsterdam, the first major city to adopt it as a strategy for economic development. I know that everyone in the room will be at different levels of understanding and awareness of Doughnut Economics. So in the next half hour or so, I will do my best to get a level, to give a solid but broad brush perspective on how it's emerging as an ideology and a practice to see what you all think. And I hope to have plenty of conversations within the room and on Zoom following the presentation. Firstly, to give you a quick overview of how the talk will flow. Why me? How have I, with a background in creativity and design, come to think and talk about new economic thinking with a particular focus on Doughnut Economics? We'll briefly examine the premise of Doughnut Economics and how it might offer us what's described as a compass for human prosperity in the 21st century. We'll consider how realistically this means looking at economics from another angle. And we'll use my journey through it, not via economics, but through sustainable development as an example. We'll take a long look at the embedded economy model, the model that underpins Doughnut Economics thinking, with some snapshots of Amsterdam projects as inspiration. And finally, we'll revisit that opening question, can Bath thrive like Amsterdam? So as I mentioned at the beginning, I work with creative leaders, cities and communities to co-design the transition to sustainable futures. I come at this through creativity and design because that's where my career began almost 20 years ago. It's sort of the natural progression of an endlessly curious child to endlessly curious adult, no stopping in between. And you can see me here, sort of on an inspiration safari in Lisbon in Portugal, exploring cities and talking to communities and talking to people and reporting back on future possibilities is really where I'm at my best. So much so that many of my creative commissions over the years were about that, were around exploring and introducing new ways of working and living. The future of food, the future of design, the future of the built environment, the future of business. And the aim of these commissions was to inspire industry developments. And a number of my projects did. They have done so, and they were featured around the world. But that was always very interesting to me, because in an increasingly consumption-led and trends-based industry environment, I had a very anti-consumption, anti-trend approach. I didn't like it. I was very interested in our relationships with nature and our surroundings and each other, and the role of creativity and design in enabling those. So I focused much more on the fundamentals, the creative and practical skills like growing and making and imagining and being resourceful and thinking and solving problems creatively. And the interpersonal skills that were required to do that together, like talking and listening and collaborating, building relationships and sharing knowledge. And I knew that this very basic human values-led approach was resonating with the industry audiences, but I could sense it was attached to something much bigger than that, something much bigger beyond industry, and I couldn't quite put my finger on it. So I hit pause on my projects and I went off to do some of my own research. And eventually I had to do a master's degree to try and rein myself back in from all the rabbit holes I had been burrowing around in. And in that degree, I went across all sorts of interesting themes: enterprise, economics, behavior change, design, communication, and all those things, how they all interconnect. And during that research, I came across the following question: how can this place be a home to thriving people in an ecologically thriving place while respecting the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet? And I realized that this was the question that had been burning in my mind, unspoken throughout my career. This is the question that is fundamentally asked in Doughnut Economics by Kate Raworth, whose work I've been following since 2017. How can this place be a home to thriving people in an ecologically thriving place while respecting the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet? Doughnut Economics explores the mindset and the ways of thinking needed for humanity to thrive in the 21st century, with the aim of meeting the needs of all people within the means of the living world. And by posing a question, not a statement, not a limitation, not a directive, but a question, I think it reignites our creative curiosity and it compels us to explore the possibilities together. So what is the donut part? While Doughnut Economics as a concept explores the mindset and ways of thinking needed for humanity to thrive, the donut diagram pictured here offers a visual representation of what it means in practice. It's made up of two concentric rings: a social foundation where everyone's needs are met. This is based on the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and an ecological ceiling where we don't overshoot the planetary boundaries that protect the life support systems that Earth provides. This is based on the planetary boundaries identified in 2009 by the Earth System and Environmental Science teams led by Johan Rockström of the Stockholm Resilience Centre and Will Steffen of the Australian National University. Between these two sets of boundaries, we have the donut shape, ecologically safe and socially just, the safe space in which we can all thrive. So the donut is the core concept of Doughnut Economics, and the goal is to get everyone and everything into it. When we apply actual place-based data to the donut, we start to visualize and compare the environmental and social performance of different cities and countries. In this graphic, for example, we can see that the dark green circles show the social foundation and the ecological ceiling. The red wedges on the inside show shortfalls below the social threshold, and on the outside, the overshoot beyond the ecological boundary. The grey wedges show missing data. And in this way, then, the data and the variations can be evaluated place to place, country to country, with the goal of each being to make the necessary changes to pull everything back into the light green section between the darker boundaries, considering social and ecological needs simultaneously. Now, I have highlighted this 21st century economic thinking to meet the needs of all people within the means of the living planet by bringing everyone and everything into the donut. But during my research and interaction with people on this topic, I've found that there's a tendency to stop at the donut diagram without exploring the all-important economic redesign that underpins it. So at this point, I have to apologize to any scientists in the room that were getting excited about the data. I'm not going there, at least for now, because I'm going to pick up on a point that Kate Raworth makes very clearly. Pictures stick in the mind's eye, and wordlessly reshape our view of the world. It's why this donut visual has been developed as such a powerful common reference, because of the overall power of pictures as a form of communication and their power to stick in our minds. And whether that's the cultural motifs or the logos of the big name brands, we know that. We know that pictures stick in our minds. But in terms of economics, many of us have quite a different picture stuck in our heads. If you've studied economics, I can assume you've seen this model before, or one similar, the circular flow model. It's said to be among the first, if not the first model that is shown to economics students. Now, I can only explain this within the limits of my own knowledge. I'm not going to pretend I know more than I do about this. I know other things. But as far as I've learned, it's designed to represent the flow of money between businesses and households. In this basic circular flow model with two factors, which this one is, you can see business and households. Businesses produce goods and services for households to buy. Households provide the businesses with labor to produce the goods and services and get the money to buy them. And so it goes round. And it has to be more complicated than that we all work for businesses to get the money to buy things from businesses, doesn't it? I mean, of course, the models get a lot more detailed, but we're told that this thinking is still the basis of mainstream economic thinking, even though this model was introduced after the Second World War, very specifically to get money moving around the economy again. And that was important in that context. But we're in a different context now. And if that's still the first model that economics students see, then I can imagine it would leave a very limited impression of what life is about and for, and how our needs are met, and who meets them, and what else we might need to take into account. The impression that the economy is solely about business and what is bought and sold, and our role is to keep it moving through working harder and for longer, and buying more things, which of course translates to the financial transactions and only those on which we measure GDP. So this circular flow thinking is pretty new to me, but now that I've seen it, I can see it everywhere. I can see it in every message in every advert, every grant application, every government recommendation, and almost every business class and ideology, that it is deeply ingrained in our economic design, and it would be quite a hard lesson to unlearn if you had learned it. Unfortunately for me, I did not learn it. This model was my introduction to economics, a much bigger picture view. The embedded economy model, which summarizes several key insights from across ecological, collaborative, and microeconomics, the decisions made together by people on the ground. This shows everything we do as a society is framed within the parameters of Earth, the living world, which gives all of our energy and resources. And based on that, how we as a society design the economy to meet our needs in 4 key ways within those parameters. When I look at that diagram, I go straight to thinking, this is a much more realistic picture and a proper scope to work with. How does that relate to the circular flow diagram? Does it relate to it at all? Because only the household and the market, specifically businesses, are touched upon here. It feels a bit tenuous, though, to try and shoehorn that in. And anyway, where's the state and the commons? Not to mention the earth that provides the energy, materials, and waste management. And the concept of society, of us as a whole, not just as workers/consumers. And thinking as an economist might, a bit late for that now. How do we work all these extra bits into the equation? But that's the thing, they're not extra bits. They were always there, we just cut them out. And now we're in a whole heap of trouble. Sometimes it can be helpful to approach things from a fresh angle and explore a different perspective. We've all been encouraged to stay in our lanes, but I think it's time that more of us strayed outside them. We have a lot to offer and a lot to learn from each other. I didn't study economics in any detail. I never really thought I would. It felt like a different entirely field to me, like law or psychology, different to design. I did question it at times as a creative entrepreneur when I was offered business education, where the goal was invariably to cut costs and maximize profit, when I wanted to pay creatives and makers properly for quality work and materials. But it wasn't the mark of a successful business at the time, not considered ambitious or growth-minded enough. But that concept of business growth didn't make sense to me long term. If I squeezed everyone I commissioned and devalued their work and materials and processes, they wouldn't be around for long. And I would have caused some serious damage along the way. I've never really known why ambition can't be for everyone to have good work and a good life and be well looked after and have enough. But I still didn't make the connection to economic design. It was only when I went back to university that I bumped up against economics properly, but from a very different perspectives, and saw how economics is in everything. Some of you will recognize this definition of sustainable development. Sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. This is taken from the Brundtland Report, also known as Our Common Future, which was published in 1987 by the United Nations to examine global development up to and beyond the year 2000. Now, a lot has changed since then. Sustainable development is continually the topic of many varied and heated discussions on how appropriate it is as a concept, what it looks like in practice, or its scope, or how it's measured. Even if development means growth or progress, and if so, who decides what progress looks like, or simply change? However it's being interpreted or misinterpreted by us along the way. Stripped back, that Brundtland definition is still a strong foundational statement on which to build knowledge and conversation. Because of course we know that by endeavouring to meet our own wants and needs now, which going by the overflowing shops and supermarket shelves can sometimes sound an awful lot closer to wants and whims, we've been stealing from future generations. So here's a taste of what it was like to get to the embedded economy through sustainable development instead of mainstream economics. And I invite you to join me in my mind's eye when considering the powerful pictures I was shown along the way. First up is the three-legged stool. This is the diagram that clears up any starting point misconception, like my own and many people I know, that sustainability is just about the environment. It considers three related elements: the environment, yes, but also society and the economy. Focusing on one over the others can be ineffective and also destructive. Kick any one of those legs off and the sustainability stool will fall over. It's a very clear and simple message, but perhaps too simple. Which brings us to the sustainability then. Here, the same three elements overlap and start to give us some food for thought on how they relate to each other. Where society meets the environment, we examine livability. We consider our ability to live within the environment we inhabit. Can we breathe the air? Can we eat the food? Can we drink the water? Can we regulate our temperatures? Where society meets the economy, we consider if we operate fairly, our ability to meet the needs not just of ourselves, but of everyone. And where the economy meets the environment, we consider our viability. Are we using the Earth's resources up quicker than they can regrow? Are we using up resources that can't regrow quicker than that we can come up with alternatives? And are we producing more than we need in the first place? And what happens to the surplus? Interesting discussions on these overlaps, but still, the equal weighting of the Venn diagram gives the impression that there's no dependency or hierarchy from one element to the other, which isn't true. So off we go to the sustainability pyramid. When people see this diagram, they sometimes say, aha, see, the economy is at the top because it's the most important. No, the economy is at the top because it's the most precarious. This one shows that when we're considering how to meet social and economic needs, we need to do so in a way that restores and maintains the environment. Why? Because it holds everything up. The stability of the economy is only as good as the stability of society. And the stability of society, and therefore the economy, is only as good as the stability of the environment that we depend on. It really is fundamental. As Kate Raworth reminds us in the book, everything that is produced, from clay bricks to Lego blocks, websites to construction sites, liver pate to patio furniture, single cream to double glazing. Everything we have and use comes from within the biosphere, our environment, this earth, this planet. And if you're holding a notebook or a pen or an umbrella or anything else today, look at it. There's probably some plastic in there. It looks so man-made and artificial, but it comes from the earth. Plastic comes from oil. Oil comes from the ground. Where else would it come from? Now, you have to go with me on this one. If there are any engineers or designers in the room, you will humor me in this next mind flip to view the arrangement of the pyramid from above. Or is it a cone? I guess it's a cone. The nested dependencies model emphasizes this interdependency again, that the environment encases us all. Society is a subsidiary of the environment. and the economy is a subsidiary of our society. The economy is within us. It's of our making. We can design it how we choose. But we're still lacking the detail to get started, which brings us in one final small step to the embedded economy, which fills in some very important details about how our economy is embedded within the parameters of Earth and how we need to design it as such moving forward. So let's start with Earth. The economy continually draws in energy and matter from the Earth's materials and living systems while expelling waste, heat, and matter back out into it. So the economy depends on the Earth as its source of energy and materials and a sink for its waste. It currently operates as an open system, materials in, waste out. In fact, it's described in the book as a giant slug, which feels a little bit harsh, but kind of also fair. But the economy operates as an open system, while the Earth is a closed system. Energy flows from the sun, yes, but no materials arrive. Waste can't leave. So the increasing amounts that we produce, use, and dispose of just go round and round. They have nowhere else to go. We can see that from the heat building up, and the marine plastic, and the clothes mountains forming in deserts. So we go to society. The economy depends on society and the strength of relationships and public spirit within it. An economy's vibrancy depends on the trusts, norms, and sense of reciprocity nurtured within society, just as every sport depends on its players abiding by a shared set of rules. It relies on our social ability to cooperate and depend on each other. The social cohesion that is built through sports and social clubs and faith groups and festivals. And these all meet our needs for safety and belonging, participation, relaxation, and fun. It fosters the social equity and the stability on which our economy depends. When we sense a growing disconnect and division in our communities, the spaces and the opportunities we have to spend time together is the first place we should look. And lastly, we have the economy. Embedded within this rich web of society is the economy itself, the realm in which people produce, distribute, and consume products and services that meet their wants and needs. And here we learn about how, far from business solving our problems and selling us the solutions, the economy is made up of 4 realms of provisioning for our needs. The market, yes, to a point, but also the household, the state, and the commons. We're all of those. We inhabit all of them every day, wearing our many hats, family members in the household, employers, employees, or self-employed in the market, citizens, voters, volunteers, and community members in the state and the commons. And we use goods and services from all of them too, every day. We are them, and we need them, and we're constantly switching between our roles and responsibilities between those realms. But only our role in the market, as worker or consumer or owner of capital, is counted. Not the household that provides everything we need to show up in the world, from nutritious food and clean clothes to raising children or giving care through all stages of our lives, all unpaid. Not the commons, made up of vibrant and supportive communities where we co-create accessible resources, whether food, culture, nature, knowledge, and make it freely available to everyone. Not even the state, the public investment that provides goods and services specifically to meet the needs of everyone. Currently, the market dominates, producing goods and services to meet the needs of people who can pay and only valuing what is priced. So how are we designing our new economy where the market, the household, the state, and the commons work together to provide for our wants and needs within the means of the living world? Where we value and respect each realm's unique contribution and the role we play in it, recognizing the value of the household and the commons, with a market that does not encroach on them, but collaborates, supports, and enriches them, and a state that enables all 3 and steps in to listen, inform, balance, and empower. Perhaps in that thoughtful and collaborative economy, we would no longer need to be associated with a giant slug. I've been talking about the economy for a little while now. I have to. We need to understand the premise fully before we move on. And I'm sure you've been wondering, where does Amsterdam come into this? In April 2020, the city of Amsterdam became the first major city to embrace the donut publicly as its guide to social and economic recovery from the pandemic. It grabbed the opportunity to think differently with both hands. It downscaled the donut with its data to the scope of the city and created what they called a city portrait, a cross-sector strategy that brings everyone in the city together to consider its local aspirations, to be thriving people in a thriving place, and its global responsibilities, the well-being of all people and the health of the whole planet. I've also been talking about needs, but in quite an abstract way. So I'm going to combine these now and explore some tangible examples of needs that we have and imagine how they can be met by each realm of the economy with an active example of Amsterdam addressing them in their own donut-aligned way. So first up, we need a good meal. A particularly important need given the pockets of deprivation and levels of child poverty in Bath. A city that looks anything but deprived from the outside. We all need to eat well, not just be full, not just eat what there is, not just eat anything, but eat well with nutrition and enjoyment. And how do we do this together? In the household, we can do this through home cooking, choosing ingredients and experimenting with flavors, preparing, assembling, and savoring the dish in our accomplishment. The time to think and the waiting time, all part of a creative process now lost that nourishes ourselves and our household. In the commons, we can do this through cooking and eating together. Sharing food we've grown, along with our recipes, our wisdom, our tips and suggestions. Often from our respective backgrounds and cultures, this is a timeless social experience that encourages empathy and understanding and builds trust, relationships, and esteem. In the market, we can do this through hospitality. Cafes and restaurants that provide fair and meaningful work and use quality ingredients from responsible sources. As part of a wider strategy to embed distributive practices and regenerative processes into the food system for local and global well-being. And through the state, we can balance them all. When young people are building up their bodies and brains, we provide nutritious and flavoursome meals to set them up for the future while ensuring their education includes the value of food from field to fork and infuses their choices into adulthood. So let me see if I can pronounce this. Voortweg. There, that's the only time I'm going to try that. It means neighbourhood belly. And essentially, the people who support it collect surplus food from caterers, supermarkets, and restaurants and cook up delicious meals for local residents. Not just people experiencing poverty or marginalised communities, the whole neighbourhood, and whoever happens to be in it or passing by at the time, all are welcome. It nourishes people and it saves food from landfill at the same time. And it would, with my background, be remiss of me not to point out that beautiful logo and the branding values. This is very considered, and I like it. Of course, the greater conversation is why people need nourishment and why there is surplus food to begin with. But while we're having that conversation, this is incredibly inspirational work. The next need I'm exploring is responsible fashion. A priority discussion here in Bath as city leaders plan its fashion quarter. Fashion is a form of creative expression which has sadly become a tool for overconsumption. And traditionally, it respects quality, craft, and creativity, and embodies practices that care for producers and value resources. So how do we reclaim fashion for local and global well-being and meet this need together? In the household, we can do this by altering, mending, and upcycling our clothes so that they can both last for longer and reflect our individuality. We can support an economy of circular skills, care for clothing, tailoring, alterations, and teach our children to be confident in self-expression, not a slave to trends. In the commons, we can do this by swapping, sharing, restyling clothes as our tastes and our shapes might change, in community groups or repair cafes to share knowledge and instructions and equipment to care for different fabrics and reuse and repurpose what we have. In the market, critically, we can do this by updating our business models, moving away from a take, make, dispose, linear pile-em-high sales model of cheap production, which harms producers who are often unseen far away and ultimately falls apart in our hands, to a circular business model of originality, low production levels, and aftercare services forged on strong relationships. And through the state, we can support and balance them all. Ensure that businesses taking risks to solve our wider problems are not hindered by high commercial rates, making affordable space available to them, and ensuring that the creative and practical skills and new business models we need are woven into our education and valued highly. Let's look at Lina Fashion Library in Amsterdam. 3 sisters and a friend launched it in 2014 as an online and offline clothing library. where you can borrow beautiful clothing sourced from a mix of emerging designers, sustainable fashion labels, and vintage. You can borrow clothes monthly with a subscription or daily using credits. And I can only imagine how well this could work here in Bath with 6 million tourists a year traveling for award ceremonies, concerts, theatres, and fine dining, reducing the need to buy or carry huge amounts of weighty luggage. And I'm actually aware of a similar initiative already underway in the Alps for winter sports. So there's definite food for thought there. It's interesting at this point to look out for the collaborations. The household care that's coming through from chefs and retailers, sharing surplus with food charities and initiatives, that beautiful branding coming from the creatives as well. The circular commons thinking matched with market savvy behind responsible brands making clothing accessible through a library and not just sales. The potential of intersectional thinking spanning the 4 economic realms is the most inspiring of all to me. As Kate Raworth remarked in a recent podcast, some of our most exciting economic innovations in our economies are happening at the intersections of these. And if you don't start by seeing all of them, you'll miss it. You'll miss out that space of innovation. So here we have one that we're all familiar with, our phones, these drawers in our houses that are dedicated to old phones and their cables, where they often stay if we want to avoid contributing to almost 54 million metric tons of e-waste. Imagine if we can fix them ourselves. No fear of dropping them on the street or into the bathtub. No fear of chargers that suddenly don't charge or updates that render our handsets useless. Spare parts and tools available off the shelf, or even better, the online files to download them and 3D print them at home or in our local makespace. Of course, the market would have to abandon the planned obsolescence that guarantees them sales and adopt this circular repair, service, and support culture, weaving it into their product design and business models with accessible guides and instructions and new metrics for success beyond sales alone. And through the state, we can support and balance them all with new legislation, including by extending the recent right to a repair law to tech categories such as mobile phones and laptops, and with support and education on new enterprise models and research projects where rapid growth and scale are de-emphasized. Amsterdam's Fairphone is a great example of circular business model innovation, a smartphone developer which not only tackles e-waste post-sale, but also the very real human rights concerns of smartphone production pre-sale through utmost supply chain care and transparency. The handset is designed for repair from the outset, making spare parts, training, and tutorials really easily accessible to customers so that they can fix it themselves. If it ever seems unfixable, it is sent back for repair or exchange, all to keep toxic waste, lead, mercury, lithium plus, from leaking into our land and seeping into our water systems, protecting our commons and our planetary household. Finally, I give you climate resilience. Undoubtedly a growing need in our highly concreted cities and communities as we become ever more vulnerable to extreme weathers and temperatures. This means the knowledge and skills to grow plants and food for ourselves in whatever space we have, whether a window box or a balcony, no impermeable paving to make way for more parking, no more astroturf. Make space for soil, for drainage and vegetation that restores nature and cools and cleans the air. Using ample and accessible information to learn what can be practically achieved and maintained within our reach at a city, town, village, neighbourhood, street and building level. Investing in the practical skills, technologies and trades to put real-world solutions in place, from energy and infrastructure to horticulture and construction. And through the state, we can support and balance them all. For example, through access to subsidies that support people to make the changes that will support climate change mitigation and adaptation and smooth our transition. I am thoroughly taken by the Amsterdam Rainproof Initiative, a citywide network of organizations, architects, designers, planners, gardeners, growers, residents, and many more that are actively committed to making the flood-prone city rainproof and preserve its rainwater. Abundant practical guidance on how to make tangible adaptations in the face of increasing flood threats and overpaved urban areas, whether the project is a whole neighbourhood or building, or simply lifting some paving slabs on your patio and putting plants in there instead. This website is clear, informative, uplifting, and actionable straight away, and I think it's an outstanding example of the collaborative city in action. through all these examples, and they really are just a few, we have seen how each realm of the Doughnut economy brings its unique knowledge, systems, and skills to the collective goal. There are so many possibilities to explore together here. How can we work together better across sectors, across communities? Where might all our interests and conversations intersect here in Bath? You know, when I was drafting this talk, I wrote the title, Can Bath Thrive Like Amsterdam? Partly because as a designer, it's practically the law to love Amsterdam and Dutch design. And their creative approach to problem solving really is beyond compare. I have to give them that. But mainly, of course, because they led internationally on the Doughnut, which wasn't really a surprise to me, but they did. Good credit. But the more I've talked to people here and worked on my Doughnut Economics learning group, I started exploring all the different groups and projects and initiatives on our doorstep, and I kind of felt a little ashamed of myself because we have a repair cafe in the city centre. We have one in Twerton High Street. We have community kitchens practically every day with momentum growing in this room as well to make them much more mainstream. We even have a time bank in Twerton where people swap skills and care for each other all year round. This is great work. We have dozens and dozens of social and environmental activism groups, restoring people, restoring nature, restoring wildlife, caring for animals at every opportunity they have. And we have a plethora of B Corps and other businesses committed to doing well through doing good. We lead in architecture, design, technology, science, creativity, and communication. We're a World Heritage City with a firm eye on the future, full of beauty and character, and loved internationally. We have so much to work with here. What if we all work together? So I got my red pen out. How would I rewrite the question now? Inspired by Amsterdam and its leadership, but with no need to be like it. We're ourselves. We have our own things going on. And it simply became this. Not can Bath thrive like Amsterdam, but how can Bath lead like Amsterdam and thrive like Bath? Thank you, everyone. I hope that was fine and good and slow and useful. And I offered some food for thought. Please feel free to contact me directly if you want to explore these ideas. But now I'd love to see if you have any questions or thoughts to talk together here in the room and on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Right. Who would like to be first? And please do talk into the microphone, which I will bring to you. No questions in the room? Yes, at the back there. I think this will be, no, that'll be my easiest route.
Okay, I have to. This way.
Keep your hand up, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I agree with a lot of Doughnut Economics, and your talk is excellent. So maybe I'll ask a challenging question to push things along. Both Amsterdam and Bath are heavily dependent on international tourism. What do we think can be an answer to that, with the city leading for sustainable tourism, given the amount of emissions that such travel will produce now and in the future?
It's true. I mean, I'm always very interested in understanding all the different sectors and potential to kind of be much more distributive and less dependent on one thing. It's sort of an eggs in one basket thing. So I would be really interested to talk about how what all the other opportunities are in addition to tourism, but also how we can ensure basically that people here are spending time and spending money and enjoying the place and respecting the place. And also there's so many ways to think about how people get here and where they spend their time and how long they spend here. We could be doing a lot of education around showing the alternative routes and the alternative ways to spend time here in Bath and around Bath. I think there's a lot to discuss there. I mean, the thing is, are there people in the room that are involved in the tourism aspect of this city? Always interested to know who's not in the room as well, because this is, this is really meant to be a collective discussion on what these opportunities could be. I do think that we depend on tourism and consumption quite a lot, which concerns me quite a bit. And we kind of focus on that to the detriment of other things that we could be doing. We focus on retail consumption. We focus on the consumption through hospitality, and it makes me wonder whether we need to think a lot more about the things that we have on offer here when people come here, the money that they're spending. What are they supporting through the money they spend? So, for example, the fashion quarter, is that going to be, high fashion brands, high street brands, more of that, or is it going to be independents? Is it going to be responsible suppliers, responsible fashion? Where are they spending their money, and what's their impact, and how can we adjust the behavior there through the things that we have on offer? I'd probably start there if I was thinking about that. If they're going to spend their money in restaurants, for example, what are the qualities of those restaurants? Where are they getting their food? How are they supporting the community, the wider community in the region? If they're going to come anyway, then yeah, can we make sure that that money is spent and has a ripple effect from here, from the businesses that we have in place here? Somewhere around there, I would say. Have you thoughts on it? Oh.
Yes, I suppose I do. I think the city is bound up and will need to adapt to not attract more and more international tourists, but like you say, adapt how they travel, give advice, have some guidance on ways to spend your time. Hope that the rest of their trip can be about enjoying more, not traveling a lot. More quality, perhaps less often. But thank you. Thanks.
No. Well, no, I mean, I have to be honest here. I'm one of these people that the best answer comes out half an hour after everyone's gone. But yeah, it is a very good question. We are overly dependent on retail and tourism and hospitality, and we could do better there, I think, in terms of what we have on offer. There's so many questions.
Questions first.
Arabella. Oh, Nicolette.
Thank you, Carra, for a wonderful overview and inspiring talk. We spent a lot of time talking about nestedness and embedding, but actually there are far more levels of nests than depicted in the ones you showed. And Bath is a small city nested within a wider city region, or I would prefer to say even a bioregion, the watershed, if you want to go a bit bigger. We're starting from the place where we're actually quite constrained. A lot of the political power is not in our locality, it's probably with the national government, and then global issues. So what encouragement can you give us from how do we get from where we are now to where we would, the vision of you put in your presentation? Because we don't have a clean slate when it comes to redesigning our economy. We just don't have that power. We are where we are because the degenerative, extractive economic model is absolutely entrenched in all the institutions, as you pointed out, but particularly in the political institutions as well as in the business world.
I think that, when doing any presentation like this with a whole range of people in the room, it's about trying to get a level and working out where people might be at different levels of understanding. And I think it's a good thing to do generally in any conversation or in any space at all, to try and bring people together on common ground on the same page. So in that respect, working through those simple models is, some people won't have ever seen those before at all, for example. Even though, enormously intelligent in other fields, they won't have seen sustainable development models before at all, even the basic ones. I think that, you know, I've had this conversation recently that the biggest issue with the biggest barrier to achieving net zero ever is going to be the conflicted message of to reduce and minimize our emissions and so on works in direct opposite to what economic success looks like at the minute. So it's all about reducing and minimizing and buying less, consuming less. But the economic vision currently is we have to buy more, we have to use more, we have to become much more spendy to hit that massive GDP target. So the two things don't go together, and that means that net zero won't be met while it's like that. In terms of understanding the kind of working towards economic redesign, I think I see an awful lot of people starting to do it. You've always got people who are either deliberately not doing it or just didn't see an alternative, wasn't aware of an alternative. And now that the alternatives are starting to be shown over and over again, people are starting to move towards them. I have great hope there because I see it happening. You can't say to stop doing something. You have to show the alternative to move towards other people. Otherwise, people freeze or revert back to what they always knew. I think we're starting to understand, more and more people are starting to understand the actual consequences of what's happening with the climate now, the consequence of our choices. I think that people are really starting to hammer home, and people who deny that or disbelieve it in any way are finding less ground to stand on there. So more people are looking for the alternatives and the solid ground. I think that from my perspective, to get people to communicate, we must communicate and connect. We must communicate and connect, because all these people that I've talked about working in Bath, they don't know each other. So all are working separately on different things, different aspects of the same thing. And if to connect that up would be enormous, a massive, massive potential on a world stage to actually show what we're made of, and show how it can be done and lead the way on it. I just think we need to have the conversations, but to do that, we need to work on those interpersonal skills as well that I was talking about, because everyone is from a completely different background, level of understanding, level of education, different socioeconomic status, all these types of things. And we have to start learning to talk together on common ground. That's actually, I feel that's the biggest job of all, is relearning how to communicate with each other on common ground and with empathy and understanding that everyone has a slightly different perspective on things, but we're all looking to achieve the same goal together. Which is why, I mean, I studied post-growth economics as part of my degree, but I chose to delve into Doughnut Economics because it's such a framework that can be developed and an umbrella for all our different interests. You know, everyone is interested in different things, whether it's food, social care, whether it's ecology, whether it's deprivation. It's all in there. It's all in there to work on, whether it's, you know, physics, sciences, natural sciences, all these things are in there. So in that, we can find a space to work together and where we intersect. I have great hope for our potential when we connect.
Could you perhaps tell us about some of the meetings organised by the council, I believe, coming up, and also your transition or Doughnut Economics group, I think first Thursday of the month?
Yeah.
So practical things we can do as well. And then the next question, stick your hands up. Thank you.
Okay, so practically here, we run a learning group. I run a learning group in Bath in the Grapes on the first Thursday of every month. It's at 6 o'clock until 7:30. And then everyone that goes to that heads off into People Planet Pint later in the same place, which is from 7:30 till 10. And in that group, which I started back in January, we committed to reading a chapter of the book, because I know an awful lot of people, they buy the book and then they open the first few chapters and they go, I'll do that another day. And they put it back on their shelves. So that was to try and get it off the shelves and into the hands and go, right, we're going to get through this. And we did it one chapter a week online. And then after that, the more hardcore of us decided to meet in the Grapes, which is upstairs. Very, very kind of them. They allow us that space because of the values of that pub, which is social and environmental values. And we meet and we do different sticky topics. We do some of the materials. I develop some materials just to see if we can get more knowledge and communication and interaction through those. And that's what we do every week. It used to be with nuts, but that's not okay. They didn't taste good. So now the last attempt was a bundt cake. So yeah.
And the council meeting that's coming up soon, where Kate's coming along?
Yes. So I need to clear that up, Vicky. I haven't worked with Kate. if I get into trouble. I've followed her a lot, but I haven't worked with her. The council is now embracing Doughnut Economics by all accounts, and they are looking to put that into their economic and socio-environmental strategy. So they're currently working on that behind the scenes. They have an event coming up on the 3rd of October, I believe. I'm not sure who's all going to that, but Kate Raworth will be there with her team, and I think they're going to start exploring what that might look like in Bath specifically.
I hope you're going to.
I am, yes, I am. I'm helping a little bit.
Thank you so much for an amazing talk. That was brilliant. If we were to do a whip round after this session and buy you a magic wand supplied with 3 wishes for helping Bath lead like Amsterdam and thrive like Bath, how would you use those 3 wishes? And I guess I'm talking about those quick wins, or those, you know, the low-hanging fruit where we could, you know, leverage change, leapfrog forward, you know, things that are tantalizing in their potential, or something completely different because it's your magic wand.
That's my magic wand. I can do whatever I like. I would like a city portrait to be done of Bath. So, and this is very practical. It's very practical. So I suppose that's not a magic wandish wish, but I would. It is, did okay. So I would do a city portrait of Bath, and this goes back to what Nicolette was saying, which is again an answer popping out too late for the question. To have that data of Bath, and to have that practice of finding that data for any town or village or part of the region outside Bath as well, to really be able to see what's needed, really just see it. Like we know, okay, so air pollution is fine there, but biodiversity isn't. And then we would know that, okay, so I don't know, there's an urban heat island in that apartment area, and we need to fix that. And there's floods there, they're prone to floods. So we would start to see all the different things that were actually needed to be worked on very specifically. And then we would be able to, second magic wand wish, everyone spoke the same language. Everyone spoke the same language. Everyone just used the same language, the same words, the same behaviors. Everything was just, everybody got on. That's basically it. Everybody got on well, and there was no judgment. There was no, everybody just went, right, what do we need to do? What do you need me to do? I'm an architect. What do you need me to do? I'm an accountant. What do you need me to do? I'll get my calculator out and I'll make the calculations. And I need, I'm a chef. What can I do? Everybody knew what their skills were that they could bring to the table. I would love that. And that everybody just did it with, no tensions. Just do it. Let's just do it. Let's just talk. So that's number 2. Now I need a number 3. I wish that Bath could emphasize circular skills and the creative circular economy. So I think that we've got so many, we're a creative city. Everything is, we are big thinkers and we are very creative. We have architecture, fashion, interiors. We have everything from, culinary creativity. We have all sorts of stuff. But when we talk about the circular economy, we always talk about it from the technical perspective. How much carbon emissions can we reduce in the concrete and all that kind of thing, which is all very valid. But there's an entire suite of circular creativity that is not tapped into, that we would be amazing at here. And we would be able to design all the new jobs for a new economy just from here. And that would put us on the map beyond anything, I believe.
Right. Next question. And while I'm walking there, can I please advertise the Transition Bath website, which I think might encompass quite a lot of the knowledge goals that we're all looking for. Right, over there. Please keep your hand up.
Yes, so I was just wondering, I was a student of economics at a degree level, and I saw the first one of those, the households and services diagram, a million times, but I've never seen that second diagram, and it seems brilliant. So why is it not more widespread?
The embedded economy?
Yeah.
I think that's the thing. I think that the Doughnut Economics team are doing everything within their power to get it into education at all levels, because I mean, it involves everyone. This is a thing that economics, which is what I didn't realize, is that it runs through everything that we're doing. Like, we are all in it. We are it. We are the economy. So every decision and everything we study is all through that lens. And I don't know why it's not. Well, I mean, it's not being embraced easily because it goes against the current economic design. So it's not going to support infinite growth. That's the thing. It's going to make us sort of curb our growth, and then that goes against GDP, which is what the country measures its success on, and how it measures and shows its success on an international stage. So it directly conflicts with that. But at some point, it's going to hit the wall. You know, resources will run out. Resources will become scarce, overly expensive. It would be better to design a new economy before we need it than end up needing it and not having it.
Right, next.
Yeah, I guess I thought there were some interesting ideas in what you presented, but when I look into it, you know, just as a bit of background, I'm a technologist, and we've built a software company that this year will get into the $10 million a year range. So we're growing quite strongly. And when I listen to what you're saying about Bath, is yes, there's loads of things that could be done. But if I think about how might we have brought the high-paid people we have, how might we have brought them to Bath? It would be little things, actually. It would be, when we were starting out, could we have got office space that was cheap, that was good? Could we have not had to pay parking? Or could, for example, have been a decent bus service that people could have come in, and all of those things actually have been the big barrier, or the barrier for us, of why we are not in Bath. Why are we outside Bath? And all of the salaries and all of the money we paid and all of, you know, the people we keep hiring, they're not coming to Bath because those basics aren't in place. So yes, there's lots of good ideas in what you're talking about, but there are some, I think there are some basics that could have been done that, certainly in our context, would have made a difference.
Okay. No question.
Joe, outside? Was there somebody? Yeah, those two people there.
Yes. Okay. Hi, thank you for the presentation. That was brilliant. So I have a question around the importance of sort of adopting the donut from a policy-making perspective. So you presented some really lovely examples of projects that are happening in Amsterdam. And I was wondering how many of those have sort of been enabled by the decision to adopt the donut as a principle at a city level. How doing that can enable things. Are those projects sort of aware that they're contributing to a kind of donut model, or are they things that are just good examples of that? And what's the importance of, from a policy making perspective, what do you think is the potential of doing that as a city council, as a town council, to sort of encourage that at a kind of community level?
Okay, there's lots of questions in there. Those examples are not all from the time since Doughnut Economics was introduced. I think that it just comes from the values that are already in certain aspects of Dutch culture. Now, I would never know or be able to say that Holland is perfect at any particular thing at all. I do know that the values that come through from the design industry, and the design as a problem solver, a creative problem solver, as opposed to a developer of more stuff. They've always had that. And that comes through their kind of the annual design festival and things. But I don't think it was, you know, it wasn't an enormous leap for them to embrace the donut because those values were already in place. And I do think that that's a major point to make here, that none of the, you know, not many of the principles that Doughnut Economics discusses are not already in place in people now. You know, a lot of us already have the values. It's just the donut is helping us articulate them and put them together and connect us in those values. So I know that the Lena Library was 2013. I know that 2014, I think. I know Fairphone, possibly prior to 2016. But they are good examples of donut values in practice, the regenerative, distributive, circular business models in action. How to get them into policy. I'm from a creative and design background, remember, but how to get them into policy. When you build the case for this stuff, you're working on the basis that there are certain limitations that are coming through where creativity would be the foil for that. There are resource limitations coming through, like it or not. There are resource limitations coming through. There is ill health in society that is messing up our productivity. Design and technology, for example, which accounts for so many aspects of education for people who are not being, just not attuned to software and coding and all that kind of thing. They're being abandoned, left behind. We need to look at all the co-benefits of all of these things and see how they connect together. So if it's climate action, how does it relate to health? How does it relate to education? How does it relate to the loneliness agenda? All the different agendas, all connected, which are currently, as far as I can see, in policy, all segregated and separated as if they're a thing apart from each other. I think building those connections between the policies would very much reinforce the case for any of these solutions to come through. Best I can do as a creative, but feel quite strongly about that. You can see the connections, and it's a massive question when you see it as an outsider. Why are they so separate? Why is the kind of the levels of youth crime not connected to the education and skills development sector? And so why are these things also disconnected and treated separately?
Right. Now we're going to take a question from one of the Zoom audience. Joel's going to read it out.
Do you think that both a basic living wage and citizens' assemblies are part of Doughnut Economics?
Universal basic income or basic living wage?
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. I mean, basic living wage is pretty sensible. I'm not sure I'm clear on the question. Can you elaborate a wee bit on it? Where am I? Oh, on Zoom. Sorry.
It's a Zoom question, so
Yeah.
I think we can skip that one then.
Oh.
Next
Can't
question
really
in
make
the
sense
room.
of it.
Thank you very much. I was just a little surprised that the Sustainable Development Model makes no specific identifiable reference to technology. And at a time when AI, artificial intelligence, is so much in the news at the moment, it has the potential to aid sustainable development or indeed be the opposite. And I just wonder if it needs integrating into the model specifically so that it's highlighted and so that we can use it for common good rather than the opposite.
Into the Doughnut framework. I think all the, from what I can see, all these topics are within it. So, the framework is it's a way to help us think. It doesn't have all the answers. It has kind of a framework for us to open up conversations and open up our thinking around different topics and how they connect. So I think, the Doughnut itself is based on the Sustainable Development Goals. Technology does that. Let's just find this here so that we can see what we're referring to. Technology and responsible work and employment and all those things sort of fit in with that. I mean, AI, technology is sort of a theme within. Yeah. So, I mean, I think all of that is themes within themes. So, and it's up to us to open up the discussions around them. I'm wondering where it fits into conversations when we're thinking about sort of the local aspirations to thriving people in a thriving place, local and global well-being. When we're looking at Doughnut Economics, we're looking from a very place-based perspective. So we're literally working where we are. So to have that conversation about AI and how it can be used, we'd be framed within this place that we're in. And we'd probably want to start there and have those discussions. And, what are the subjects that are being taught at the universities? Who's working on this stuff in business at the minute? I'm not sure. I mean, does anyone else have a thought on that? Nicolette?
Yeah, I think you could say technology is a bit like money, because if you look at this, money goes across all of those sectors. It is in one of the slides. It's right within the nested comma, there are financial flows. I think if I was to want to get technology into the model, I'd put it technology in that, I don't know if you can find the slide, Carl.
Which one?
The one which has got the embedded economy. I think you've got financial flows.
Yeah.
There you've got financial flows. I think you could have technology in that innermost circle. And when you've done that, you can then see that it all depends how you use the technology. So in the commons, you've got open source technology, and you make sure the values are very transparent. So you don't have sort of degenerative values which are hidden and and all those AI data. Yeah, all those AI debates. It can be households can do it to make be able to use the technology to actually enhance their caring and the status critical. So it permeates everything, but what it needs to be, like money, and this is where the mainstream economics has got it totally wrong. Financial flows and technology need to be in service to all of those things. They do not. And what's gone so wrong in our economic systems is that money is dictating everything else.
Yeah, there was an interesting discussion recently when we were working with young people, the 16 to 18-year-olds in the colleges that are learning technology and AI and debating it among themselves at the minute. And the people that I was speaking to are really, really desperate. The young people are really desperate to be showing how it can be developed for good, so that they can intercept anybody that's endeavoring to use it for their own gain. I think education, conversations, developing that in this area would be fundamental, but specifically with young people, because I think they have an awful lot more imagination at that point of what's possible and how they want to steer things now. Yep.
Hello. My question is simple, and that is the meeting on the 3rd of October open to the public?
I don't think it is. I think it's, I don't think it is. I'm not in the council, but I don't think it is.
It's by invitation.
Yeah.
How do you get an invitation? Do you know?
I know because I have one. And they are looking for people who can demonstrate some level of understanding and commitment to Doughnut economic principles. And they're also trying to get a balance of people across those 4 sectors. And they've got a capacity constraint. So I would suggest that anybody, I don't work for the council, so that make yourselves known to. Your local councillor. Local councillor. Yeah. Oh, and join the Doughnut Economics working.
Yeah, learning group. Yeah, for sure. No, please do. Although, like I was saying earlier, if we all go to that, we're going to need a bigger boat. I have to find a bigger space somehow.
Right. Question at the back's been waiting a while. Then you, sir.
Hi, thank you. I'm going to slightly stick my head over the parapet because from May I've had the dubious pleasure of being the cabinet member for resources at the local council.
Yeah.
The meeting on the 3rd of October isn't a public meeting, and there will be public meetings coming up, I'm sure. First thing I wanted to say is that you're absolutely right that this is starting to be embedded in the council's thinking and in the first strategy meeting, corporate strategy meeting we had after the last election, we started with a Doughnut Economics session and looked at corporate strategy in that light. I don't want people to underestimate how very, very difficult it is to embed this stuff in an institution. You have in the current administration a very supportive and committed administration to these kinds of concepts. It's going to be very difficult to turn around an oil tanker. I would also like to point out that I agree with everything that people have said in the room. I mean, there's nothing to disagree with strongly. I also agree with the gentleman who runs a tech company who says the bus service needs to be improved. You know, and these things are all extremely important. What it needs is for people like this in the room who believe in this stuff to be politically engaged, because the one thing as politicians we struggle with is we have to stand for election in 4 years' time. If we don't know that you guys support us, if you are not vocal, then the louder voices are the ones we hear. So please contact your local councillors, tell them that you believe in this stuff, make it very clear to them that this is important to you as voters. That really, really matters. And I cannot emphasize that enough. It really matters, because people like the people in this room tend to be the less vocal elements of the community. And you need to shout and you need to become vocal. Sorry, that's not a question. My question was going to be, if we could do one thing as a council in the next 12 months, what would it be?
City portrait.
Okay. Good. Thank
Sorry,
you. No, that's great.
Yeah. Audit the
That's it.
city.
That's what I'm looking for.
City
Two-word
portrait.
answer. Brilliant.
Hooray. Right, everybody
Is it okay?
shout at your local councillor and take around to just a bit of a circuitous route.
Thank you, Carra, for an amazing talk. You're all qualified to go to that meeting, I think. Thank you for highlighting the good meal, which is my pocket of this thing. Interesting conversation today with an African chef. She asked me today, is this applicable to a thriving, is it only applicable to a thriving economy? Where in a place perhaps, and her example is Lagos, which has a deficit of resource, leadership, and good governance, how could they apply this?
I mean, I think the goal of it is to create an economy that thrives. So you're not starting with a thriving economy, you're actually creating a thriving economy. That's the job. So it's using these tools, it's using the thinking tools and the materials to work out what there is to work with and build the thriving economy up from there. So that's the aim. I think an awful lot of places are starting from very much more minus than others and have a lot less to work with. But then at the same time, sometimes the areas with the least to work with are the most ingenious with their resources as well. So yeah, but I mean, the objective is to create a thriving economy.
I see we've got 7 questions on Zoom. Could you have a look at them, Joel, and read out a couple? Excuse me. Apparently, they're mostly complimentary comments. Thank you very much, rather than questions. So let's stick with questions in the room. Who's next? Okay.
Hello. I was just wondering after that man's question, Neil, I think. Yes, has this been something that's been tried in a non-Western economy?
Oh, you're going into the recesses of my brain. Yes, I mean, has it been something that's been tried? Like the specific framework? I don't know the answer to that, but I mean, I know that. Yes. Yeah. I'm kind of wanting to look up you should do this. You should all sign up on the Doughnut Economics Action Lab website as members. All of you should do that and say that you're in Bath, because that will help with the momentum that gentleman at the back asked for, the councillor at the back.
On the international question, bear in mind that Amsterdam was the first city, and that was in 2010, and that was when the Doughnut Economics Action Lab was launched. Their latest strategy, which I was reading the other day, is showing that they're really looking to expand. At the moment, they're just going for 4 time zones, north and south. And it's an ambition, but the dots on their global map are pretty thin in the global south, and they're pretty thin a long way away from Europe at the moment. But the ambition is there.
As an addendum to that, I'm a bit of an amateur historian, and I think you can really look back through centuries of economic activity and apply these principles to things that have been done over centuries and say, just because we've only accounted for this in pounds and pence, doesn't mean that people at the time accounted for them only in pounds and pence. Many of these were much broader societal interactions. People weren't only engaging arm's length transactions, accounting for them in the way that we've accounted for them from the 20th century and beyond. So there are multiples of historical examples of this, Western and non-Western economies. It's just that we've only been looking at them through a very narrow lens for a very long time.
I'll just say indigenous wisdom as well, caring, sharing, nature, honouring. A lot of the values and principles have been around for millennia. We need to rediscover them as well as create.
Thank you. Other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. That's a very interesting and clear explanation. It seems to me one of the questions coming up for me and in the room already is it's sort of nice concept, but how do you actually do it? And there's these questions coming up around, we're nested in the global financial system and policy limitations, local government limitations. So I wanted to bring up initiative I heard of recently, which is the Stroud Commons, and perhaps you might be able to explain that if you know anything about it. I'm not an economist, and I'm not very tech-minded, so I find it a bit hard to get my head around, but my understanding is it's where the intersection of market and commons meet. So it's mechanisms which allow the development of, I guess, economic flows locally that aren't dependent on the global economy, where investment and movement of credit and so on can happen within a system through novel mechanisms like use credit obligations and things that all start to sound very techy and turn me off. So but I just wanted to name that, because if anyone's interested, I'd like to invite one of the founders for a talk about it to Bath. I was in contact with him. But if you're familiar and can explain it better than I can.
Is it to do with social currency?
It's there's multiple levels, so it can be a housing commons, it can be all sorts of services which can be provided through commons investment by local people, those who have money to invest and those who want to be users of the service. So it could be housing, it could be food, credit clearing systems. And it uses the value of kind of tech to do that, to be able to create the mechanisms to allow those flows within the local system. But the idea is that all the finance stays within the local community. It can't be extracted and sent off to tax havens and so on, as happens at the moment.
I mean, I don't know of that particular one. But I mean, there's loads and loads of examples of different types of social currencies, different types of arrangement, different types of getting money and time and all these things to stay within the community. So I don't know the specific one you're talking about, but kind of the community investment. There's the not needed. One of the big things is not taking venture capital funding. That you need to kind of have investment or contributions from the community, and then they have all the different shares and contributions together. Social currencies are an amazing thing to look into, how to design different social currencies depending on the community and what they need and what they like and what resonates with them. That's a whole field of interesting stuff, you know, how to create a currency that is voucher-based or time-based and care-based and skill-based. And we have that in Twerton, and I wasn't aware of it until recently. They're already running with that. I think Amsterdam's not quite there yet, but Twerton is, which is amazing. So all of that is fascinating. And yeah, that'd be great to hear from them at a talk, Vicky.
Thanks very much. Yeah, if anyone wants to talk to me at the end about getting a group together for a Bath Commons, say it's not really my area of expertise. So I think there's lots of people in this room who might really find it fascinating. Thanks.
That sounds like a great future speaker. Let's talk afterwards. Right, we're getting close to the end now. If anybody would like to carry on this discussion, we'll be going to the Francis Hotel, so do join us there. In the meantime, any more questions for Carra in the room? No? Right. So it rests with me to say thank you so much for such an invigorating